You never know when luck may make you need assistance from the very person you have abused. An order to life is revealed in the features creatures have. Closely related ones share more features with each other than do those more distantly related. They involve cultural identity and thereby are unconscious and difficult to resolve. Probably they have somehow managed to overcome or resolve these areas of difference. Everybody but John had signed up for a new company pension plan that required a small employee contribution. It was therefore surprising and distressing when the last shipment was found to be substandard. In 2 instances, quantities were not the quantities ordered, with no equivalent adjustment made on the invoice. Sometimes I find the financial pages behind the sports pages, sometimes in a section of their own, and occasionally with the classified ads. I noticed that you have a large pile of red bricks and a stack of old picket fence sections in your backyard. If you have no use for them and are planning to get rid of them, I'd love to take them off your hands and use them for my own backyard and garden. Yearly, we manage, through agriculture, far more carbon than is causing our greenhouse dilemma. Mary went on her walk outside the long, ivy-covered wall over which she could see the treetops. I marched to the room with feelings of doom and foreboding heavy in my heart. The air was full of an exhilarating freshness which made the spirits rise and the blood dance healthily in the veins. People gave themselves up to the simple pleasures of the hour as freely as if there were no such things as care or sorrow in the world. Mac could see the little eyes peering at him curiously, the brown nose wrinkling at the strange smell of the human body. It was spacious and must once have been beautiful, but every discernible thing in it was covered with dust and mold, and dropping to pieces. When you examine the track of the landslide in the aftermath, you will find delicate blades of grass and small pebbles that remain undisturbed. Think of how much you spend on clothes, jewelry, magazines, rent or mortgages, and other things. Every so often, a coin would appear in the middle of the screen, indicating that money was about to be placed in the subject's bank. They're only accustomed to playing in the middle, and when they join a team that already has players to fill that role, they can't adjust to another position. If you cheated on that in the dark of the morning, you're getting found out under the bright lights. This he does with a view to allowing even the faint beats of the heart or respiratory irregularities. Students have learned through years of reinforcement that all they need to do is meet the minimum requirement to get the grade they want. For instance, a molecule might differ by 1% in a pair of species known from fossil evidence to have diverged 5 million years ago. Add to this the fact that the vertebrae can crush as you get older because of a condition called osteoporosis. Sugarcane was a major crop in the Antilles in the 1870s, but rats were nesting in the cane, causing a great deal of damage. Now it was specifically these animals that kept the local insect population in check. Throughout U.S. history, there has always been some degree of hostility to each new wave of immigrants. Since immigrants are willing to work for lower wages, the charges go, employers dismiss native workers and replace them with immigrants. This is due partly to the fact that when kids expect that TV will require thought, they spend more time thinking. It's not a permanent solution, but it would buy us and our descendants time to find better answers. Hubble used Mount Wilson's 8-foot-wide telescope to discover that the group of stars called Andromeda was really a galaxy, like our own. Hubble's discoveries gave us a key to the age and size of the universe and led to the development of the Big Bang theory. The other members of the group and I were gathering for dinner one evening when we noticed 6 or 7 zebras grazing outside our tent. Applied propaganda, card stacking means that one side may suppress or distort evidence, tell half-truths, or oversimplify the facts. Publishing a book or guide in your field of interest is a challenging but rewarding task. When it comes time to craft the storyline of your paper, put yourself in the right mindset. Do whatever it takes to get the reasoning portions of your mind inspired and curious. What they failed to take into account was that you were so mummified by extra clothing that you had no limb movement. Most of the older people I interviewed say that they feel no different from when they were younger. Within a narrow range, nature establishes the timetable for the aging of the body. An Indian legend tells of a beautiful princess who refused to marry a prince and thus brought war and ruin to her father's kingdom. At 7,816 meters, Nanda Devi is the queen of the Himalaya, the holiest of Indian mountains, and without question the loveliest. If a contractor building a house uses cheap materials, the house will deteriorate and fall apart quickly. Most of us don't care much about what we eat, and do not eat enough fresh fruits and vegetables. Road signs and traffic lights at junctions and busy crossing points may be removed in order to improve road safety. Neither the driver nor the pedestrian will then feel they have right-of-way, and as a consequence both will behave more cautiously. This applies not only to the air and surfaces of public places but also to individuals, including their clothing, visiting those places. The barnyard should be free from manure and well drained so that it may not harbor stagnant water. Imagine that a researcher studies 100 identical twins who were separated at birth and reared in unrelated families. Suppose further that the researcher measures these twins on various traits and determines how similar the twins are in these traits. Have you wished that you could be like a movie star, a character in the movie that all of the other characters revolve around? If becoming a star doesn't seem possible to you, then perhaps you're not recognizing what you already have. You are the star of your own life. Every experience you have with someone else is like a drop of water falling into a pool. You need a new car, but the trip to Europe would provide marvelous memories for a lifetime. The patrons have already made a calculation about the amount of money they are willing to pay in return for a particular amount of food. Should we conclude that driving is faster and safer than walking and therefore that all pedestrians should be forced into cars? Solitary students often glanced idly about while filling out their questionnaires. Those in groups kept their eyes on their own papers. Two-thirds of the subjects who were alone noticed the smoke immediately, but only 25% of those waiting in groups saw it as quickly. If the mechanic recommends preventive maintenance unrelated to the immediate problem, don't do it. If the students were asked to identify the images one at a time, that is, the crosses first, then the forms, the process went almost twice as quickly. If you are unsure, check your owner manual to see whether or not it is really necessary based upon your car mileage. At home, I let my older daughter help bathe the baby, pick out the baby clothes, and decorate the nursery. A good way to deal with all the passwords is to keep a file handy where you put your passwords. Your spell checker will not help you if you misspell a word and inadvertently turn it into another word. Get in the habit of rereading your work and looking up words that the spell checker doesn't pick up. Had we let the friend borrow the camper, she would have discovered the boxes before the mice did. You are prompted to enter your text, after which you select the language into which the text is to be translated. The translations produced by these sites are what might be termed approximate translations. You've heard folks whine, "I can't go to the party. I haven't got anything to wear." Experts in education recommend that teachers withhold their personal opinions in classroom discussions. The body is then stimulated to develop the antibodies that enable it to deal with more major assaults later on. Among overweight adults, just 42% in 2006 said they enjoyed eating a great deal, down from 56% who said this in 1989. Women's representation was at its lowest in the transportation sector, showing the steady decline during the given period. In the other category, private sector industries experienced some fluctuation in women representation during the given period, reaching about 30% in 2008. The graph shows the types of websites people use when looking for new information online. The amount spent on elementary and secondary education, through 12, in the United States steadily rose during the 27-year period. Especially, the percentage stayed at around 4.7% between 1993 and 1997, after which it didn't last. Steadily increasing volumes from deepwater fields offset these declines until 2004, after which deepwater production also began to decline. But ultra-deepwater production rose dramatically since 2004, accelerating the overall increase in Gulf of Mexico production. This animal has one horn. Male horns can reach 26 centimeters in length, while in females they are knobs or are not present at all. The plants have small, dark green, rounded leaves that give an interesting texture to a garden. The plants are difficult to grow from seeds, as germination is sporadic and can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 months. The valley is popularly known as Die Hell, the Hell, but its former residents prefer the official name, Gamkaskloof. These forces remain opposed to Boas, who advocated scientific skepticism, calling for a return to empirical observation. The most obvious advantage to a covered bridge is that it can block the elements, particularly snow. Placing salt on icy roads has the effect of melting the ice by lowering the freezing point of the water. What made this really fun was that all the entries had to be submitted using crayons in the white paper that they use as table covers. The winning entry was not only used for advertising but also proudly framed and displayed in the restaurant for all to see. There appears to be an innate and universal preference for sweet foods among peoples around the world. Suppose a reader, encountering on the other hand, when no hand has been mentioned previously, pauses and says, "What other hand?" The normal reader does not think of such an expression in terms of its literal meaning, but rather grasps its abstract sense. You may have heard an advertising slogan for a telephone company telling us that it's good to talk. She was in the home of a man who had only days to live but who'd received his absentee ballot. This example illustrates a breach of trust between Carrick's and its supplier, which resulted in a calculating attitude on both sides. An account of the accident and the time and circumstances in which it occurred should be obtained. We're better at identifying what's wrong with students than we are at identifying what's right. They constantly identify and encourage good behavior in students, which guarantees even more good behavior. Whoever owned it must have been able to bite really hard, and must have lived a long time ago for the bone to be buried so deep.